Imagine it's 1963 and you're in Washington, D.C. The city's buzzing with hope and determination as thousands upon thousands of people come together for a historic event in the civil rights movement, the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Signs demanding equality and justice dot the crowd as Dr. Martin Luther King delivers his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Dr. King's words echo the hopes of Americans yearning for equality. Look, even Mia is here, supporting this landmark event in the civil rights movement. Mia? What's happening?
Are you now, or have you ever been, a member of the Communist Party?
Oh no! Mia's been called to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee. What's going on?
Mia, you have been accused of supporting communism. You have associated with labor unions and civil rights activists, many of whom this committee believes are communists. Your participation with these organizations is considered un-American and a threat to national security.
Oh no, this is a total false accusation. Mia, I'll call your lawyer. Don't worry, we'll get you out of this. As the Red Scare continued in the 1960s, the House Un-American Activities Committee continued to investigate accusations of communism, which endangered people's lives and careers. People who pushed for social change, like civil rights and union leaders, were often targeted. And now Mia has been accused too. We need to prove that Mia's participation in labor unions and civil rights activities doesn't mean that she supports communism. In the PDF, you'll find some case files. Use these to gather evidence that Mia's lawyer needs to prove that she was falsely accused. We'll discuss the goals of labor unions and civil rights activists in the 1960s and how they were affected by the Red Scare. Mia's trial's starting soon, so we better gather our evidence fast. Let's get to work. Let's begin by gathering some context for Mia's case. We know that the March on Washington was a huge milestone in the civil rights movement, but did you know that labor unions were also involved? Let's explore how the civil rights movement and labor unions were connected in the 60s. As we've learned, civil rights activists fought against racial segregation and discrimination. Labor unions fought for fair pay, safe working conditions, and equal economic opportunities for all Americans. Now take a moment to compare the goals of each group. How do you think that these goals could be connected? Head to the case files to make a prediction. Civil rights organizers and labor unions were often supportive of each other's causes, recognizing that their struggles were part of a larger fight for justice and equality. In the 60s, black workers faced unfair wages and poor working conditions, issues that labor unions sought to resolve. Civil rights leaders recognized that in order to truly end racial discrimination, they needed to collaborate with labor unions to fight for economic opportunities for black workers. In turn, many labor unions supported legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Labor leaders recognized that racial discrimination often created divisions within workplaces that made it difficult for labor to come together and achieve their goals. So they collaborated with civil rights leaders who advocated for legislation to eliminate these divisions. The March on Washington is a great example of these groups collaborating to fight for their shared goals. While we typically associate Martin Luther King Jr. with this event, it was actually organized by A. Philip Randolph, the leader of the Black Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, the first major black labor union. Randolph's goal was to advocate for civil and economic rights for all Americans, regardless of race. So now we can prove why Mia really joined the March on Washington, to participate in a pivotal moment of unity where labor and civil rights leaders stood together to demand both racial equality and economic justice. Let's pause to complete the first case file. Let's gather some evidence about how the Red Scare affected labor unions. We'll prove that supporting unions doesn't mean Mia is a communist, but that she's a victim of a tactic called red baiting, which is when someone is accused of communist affiliations as a form of political attack. Based on what you've already learned about the Red Scare and the purpose of unions, why do you think the unions would be targets of red baiting? Head to the case files to make a prediction. Well, one reason was that business owners saw unions as a threat to their business practices and profits. For example, in order to give unions what they wanted, like fair pay, sometimes businesses had to spend more money. By labeling unions as communist organizations, businesses aimed to discredit unions to weaken their influence and ability to advocate for change in their businesses. Also, in some cases, members of the American Communist Party did in fact participate in union activities. This led to suspicion that all labor unions were advocating for communism, even though many weren't, and many non-communist union members were falsely accused. How do you think false accusations or red baiting affected the ability of labor unions to advocate for workers' rights? Head to the case files to make a prediction. The fear of red baiting led to a climate of suspicion and distrust. This created divisions within the unions that made it difficult for them to maintain solidarity. To prove that they weren't supporting communism, union leaders began conducting their own internal investigations to identify and remove possible communist sympathizers, which distracted from their primary goal of advocating for workers' rights. So, as a result, the potential for labor unions to act as a force for social change was greatly limited. How can we use what we've learned about red baiting to prove that Mia is not a communist? Pause here to complete our second case file. All right, let's gather some evidence about how the Red Scare impacted the civil rights movement. We'll look at another civil rights advocate who, just like Mia, was a target of red baiting, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We know that Dr. King played a huge role in the civil rights movement and in the March on Washington. So why do you think he was accused of supporting communism? Well, in the 1960s, some Americans saw the civil rights movement as a challenge to the status quo. Racial discrimination was deeply ingrained in American society, and those who benefited from these systems tried to stall desegregation by using red-baiting tactics against civil rights leaders like Dr. King. Despite publicly speaking out against communism, Dr. King faced public scrutiny and accusations from people who wanted to limit his influence and undermine the greater civil rights movement. These red-baiting tactics were even used by government agencies like the FBI. Under the leadership of J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI's Counterintelligence Program, or COINTELPRO, aimed to discredit anyone who they considered to be subversive, often without evidence. Subversive was a term used to describe people who were thought to be secretly working against the government. Being labeled as subversive typically meant being labeled as a communist, too. The FBI claimed that Dr. King was a subversive threat to national security and placed him under extensive illegal surveillance. They wiretapped his phones and listened in on his personal conversations. However, they failed to uncover any evidence that King actually supported communism. So how can we use the example of Dr. King to support our claim that Mia was also falsely accused? let's finish up that final case file so I can bring it over to Mia's lawyer. It sounds like the trial is beginning.
Members of the committee, I am here to prove that this robot is not a communist. Like many advocates of social change, Mia has been unjustly affected by the Red Scare. This robot is a victim of the red baiting that has been used to undermine the push for progress in this decade. Our evidence shows that both civil rights activists and labor unions are simply advocating for workers' rights, racial equality, and economic opportunities for all. Accusations against these activists are based on fear and misunderstanding. This case echoes the experience of many Americans who have faced injustice in their efforts to enact positive changes in our nation.
Wow, that was very well said. I hope it was enough to prove to the committee that Mia is innocent. Mia, you're free! It looks like the charges against you have been dropped. Whew. Wow. Our exploration today has shown us the power of fear and how it can be used to silence those who seek change. But it's also a testament to the resilience of activists like Dr. King, Mia, and countless others who, despite being labeled as threats, continued their noble struggle for justice and made lasting positive changes. We'll see you next time, historians. In the meantime, keep on making history.
Hey, hey.